Hi, welcome to Astro Babble. I'm Donna from Donna B Astrology.
And I'm Lynda from Scallywag Astrology.
And today we are going to be talking about the new moon in Libra.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the solar eclipse. Yes,
This will
very
be
cool.
the first solar eclipse in this series in Libra. So very interesting. We had the first Aries eclipse in April. And this will be the first Libra eclipse. It's also very interesting because this one does cross, its path does cross the United States. And then next year in April, it will cross from the other direction and it will cross. Actually, we've got a photo of that. Looks like you're making the sign of the cross.
It looks like X marks the spot.
So yeah, this one here coming from left to right is the one that we have coming up on the 14th of October. And then in April next year, 2024, we've got a total solar eclipse crossing down here. And it looks like where they actually meet is about San Antonio, which is in Texas, I think.
Yes, it is in Texas. So those will be the lucky people to be able to visually see the eclipses, but don't look at it directly. It's dangerous for your eyes. Get some protection.
Yeah. Me and Donna did a podcast about solar eclipses in general, and we'll put a link to that in the description. And we also looked at, I think it was presidential assassinations linked to solar eclipses.
I guess. I think so.
I can never remember which one, because we also did events, significant events in American history. I think that was for the lunar eclipses. Anyway, I'll put a link to that.
Yeah. It's been a while, but eclipses have been happening for centuries. They will continue to move on and continue to happen.
Yes, and this is a chart of the eclipse. It's annular eclipse, and it's on the 14th of October in early afternoon in the Eastern Daylight Time of
Yes.
America. So it's at 21 degrees Libra, very close to Mercury, which is interesting, and with a south node, which does tend to decrease. We have Pluto squaring, not by exact degree, it's about 6 degrees out, but it is squaring the eclipse. And we have, looks like Jupiter and Saturn are both in inversion to it, so they can't help this eclipse either way. Venus, which rules this solar eclipse, is in Virgo, so it's also an inversion. It's kind of like in the blind spot, so it kind of can't help, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that Mars and Saturn are both in aversion.
I was just looking at that Uranus in Taurus, even though it's in aversion, and so is Jupiter, because Jupiter's there as well. But this eclipse is in Libra, so it's ruled by Venus, and Jupiter and Uranus are in Taurus. So they're also ruled by Venus, which is interesting. So even though they're in aversion, they kind of do have some kind of sympathy with each other. That Uranus is just interesting. In modern astrology, we would say that's an inconjunct, which needs adjustment. Inconjuncts often need adjustment.
Well, there's a lot to be adjusted then.
And because this is a solar eclipse, it's part of what we call a Saros series. And Saros series are, there's about 73 eclipses, I think, in a Saros series. And they go for about 1,300 years from one end to the other. This one, it's Saros series 7 South.
And they all have different meanings from the original time when the eclipse first started at the top or the bottom of the Earth, right?
Yes, yes. When we say south or north, we're referring to whether they're coming from the South Pole or the North Pole. So this one would have started at the South Pole back in June 22nd, 1248, and it will run until July 26, 2492. And it's interesting, in the original chart back in 1248, it had Pluto trines the eclipse and Mars forms a square to Pluto. And you can see in this one, that's very similar. There's no trine. Pluto is forming a wide square with it. And you've got that Mars. It's not super close. It's about 10 degrees out and it's in a different sign, but still that Mars Pluto kind of connecting. And we're looking at Bernadette Brady's Predictive Astrology, The Eagle and the Lark. She's got a lot of information about eclipses. It's one of our Bibles, isn't it, Donna?
Yes, it is. I've read it thoroughly, probably a couple of times.
And what she says about this series of eclipses is the immense power, anger, and force of the Mars square Pluto is channeled into this family of eclipses via the trine. The individual experiencing this series will find that huge obstacles will suddenly or easily clear, or on the negative side, the pending potential crisis will suddenly manifest and move through his or her life very rapidly. Either way, the individual will feel that everything is moving at great speed, and that would be because of that Mars. And that's interesting. By this time, Mars will have moved into Scorpio, and just 1 degree Scorpio, and Mars is quite powerful there. It's in its own sign, it's in its triplicity, it's in its bound, and it's decan. So,
oh, very strong.
yes, yeah, a strong Mars. So fixed Mars though, fixed and water. So could be quite emotional. And eclipses, particularly solar eclipses, can be things coming to light. You know, eclipses in general can kind of just change things up, you know, surprising, unexpected events. And when it comes to things being discovered or coming to light, it's not just on the day either. I can believe up to about a month either side it might show up. And even later on, like this is the first eclipse in Libra, you know, there'll be, I don't know, possibly 2 years worth of Aries Libra eclipses. Sometimes the first initial one can be quite indicative of what you can expect. And sometimes later on, you know, like 21 Libras, this one, you know, maybe Mars will come along later and square it when it gets to, say, 21 Capricorn, which I don't know when that is exactly, probably, I don't know, January next year. That might be enough to kind of trigger something. So, yeah. And
Yeah.
Donna, do you have some information about the moon mansion?
It does. It goes very well with this moon mansion. When you said, you know, it has a Mars flavor to it, and I'm seeing that Mars and Saturn are pretty close to a trine because this has the nature of Mars and Saturn, according to Ptolemy. It is good for trades and businesses. It's not good for love.
Oh,
So that is the nature of this lunation anyways. So very, very on point.
really interesting.
It seems very malefic.
Yeah. Well, with the South Node there, you know, it has the potential to be more malefic in general. It's really interesting, though. You said not good for relationships. Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, this new moon is in aversion. It's in the sign next to it. In the sign of its fall, Venus isn't strong in Virgo. And Venus is just recently, like within the last, I don't know, 3 weeks or so, come out of her retrograde period. And she will have finally come out of her shadow period by this stage. The retrograde shadow period for that Venus was up until 7th of October. So this might be maybe a little bit of a reckoning for some relationships, perhaps. We spoke about that Mars trine Saturn at the very end of the last podcast. So I kind of like Mars Saturn. You know, Saturn can kind of give a little bit of stability to that Mars. That Mars is very strong. Saturn's not awfully strong here. And I mean, Mars is in the superior position, but interesting, like you said, that it's linked in with this moon mansion.
Yeah. I kind of like that with the like you said, Saturn brings that stability.
Yeah. Well, shall we have a look at the horoscopes?
That sounds like a great idea. Lynda and I suggest that you listen to your rising sign. You can also as well look at your sun sign and your moon sign, but the rising sign is going to tell you a lot more about how you're going to feel during this lunation. Okay, so the new moon and the eclipse is going to happen in the sign of Libra. And if Libra is your rising sign, this is going to be happening in your first house. New moons are all about starting new things. With an eclipse, it's not really suggested that you start major projects. Although eclipses do bring things in and they do eclipse things out, it's not really suggested that you bring in like it would not be good for a marriage if you were a Libra. So otherwise, this would be the time where you would be starting new things for, like, if you wanted to, change your hair, get a new wardrobe, those types of things would be good.
And if you are a Virgo ascendant, this new moon eclipse is happening in your second house. The second house is your house of income and finances and resources. These are your personal finances and resources. So maybe there's some surprising, perhaps even shocking news to do with a job, a bonus, money coming in somehow. It may be something or someone that's a resource or very helpful to you.
And if you are a Leo rising, this is going to be happening in your third house. The third house is the house of your community. It could also be a car, your transportation, short transportation, as well as your brothers, sisters, and early education. So these would be new things that you're starting with those themes.
And if you are a Cancer ascendant, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in your fourth house. Fourth house is our home, our family, most particularly our parents, and our living situation, real estate matters, homeland, heritage. So it could be that this isn't happening so much to you. It could be something happening with your parents. Maybe there's something big and exciting, maybe a little bit shocking to do with your parents. It could be to do with where you live, or, some real estate matters. Maybe suddenly you need to move, or something to do with your parents, or solar eclipses do tend to, like Donna said earlier, bring things in. So, it could be somebody new coming into the family, perhaps, or a new flatmate or something similar. But it might be, because this isn't just a new moon, this is a solar eclipse. Maybe it's kind of like you weren't planning to have this person come, but now they are there, and yeah.
And if you are a Gemini rising, this is going to be happening in your fifth house. This is the house of creativity. It's as well the house of hobbies and entertainment, like concert venues, sports games, anything you would do for fun. This as well does include children. So yeah, this could be eclipsing children in and out of your life. Not out of your life, but hopefully. But in your life, this is a good this would be an eclipse that would signify that if you are a Gemini rising.
And if you are a Taurus ascendant, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in your sixth house. The sixth house has to do with pets, with service to others, and that includes professions such as doctors, nurses, first responders, volunteers. It's also employees and those that we work with. And unfortunately, it's also illness. But there might be some sudden, maybe surprising news regarding one of those matters. It could be something coming to light. It could be suddenly you've got a new employee or somebody you work with. Could be a new pet you weren't planning, but you've been adopted by a cat or a dog or something similar. Or yeah, because it's a solar eclipse, there's likely to be something a little bit unusual. But having said that, this is more likely to impact people who have natal planets round about 21 degrees of the cardinal signs. So that's Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. For others, it might just feel like a normal new moon.
I like that, a normal new moon. And if you are an Aries rising, this is going to be happening in your seventh house. And the seventh house is the house of the one other, the committed relationships that you have, whether it's a significant other, a dentist, a hairdresser. This is when things will be coming new for that. So you might get a new hairdresser if you are in looking for a hairdresser or a dentist. This could be a new something starting with that on in those themes, if you're an Aries rising.
And if you're a Pisces rising, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in your 8th house. The 8th house has to do with shared finances and resources. It's also mortality. So yeah, this could be suddenly finding out that you've inherited through a will, or that, maybe you've been thinking about applying for a loan, but you didn't think you were going to get it. You apply and maybe it comes through. Or it could be, you're merging your finances with someone, particularly, a partner, whether that's business or romantic or whatever the relationship is. Or it could be, no, actually, it's more likely to be merging with somebody rather than financial agreement coming apart, because I would expect that more on a full moon, because full moons do tend to be more about endings. So yeah, new beginnings, new starts to do with joint or financial matters. Could be taxation, could be insurance, wills. But yeah, it might come out of left field a little bit, because there does tend to be something a little bit shocking and surprising around the eclipses.
And with Pluto in the mix there.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that.
Pluto tends to make things bigger or smaller. So that was why I mentioned that. If you are an Aquarius rising, this new moon is going to be happening in your 9th house. And the 9th house is reflective of higher education. It could as well be esoteric subjects. So these would be new things that are coming into your life around those subjects. It could also be law, publishing as well. So those are the areas that you could look for new things coming into your life.
And if you are a Capricorn ascendant, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in your 10th house. The 10th house tends to be associated with our career and public reputation. It's what we're known for. It's a house of honors and rewards. It's fame, but also infamy. So new beginnings, new starts. So maybe you're starting a new job or a new position at work, or perhaps you're starting something that will bring you some sort of reward or acknowledgement further down the track. If you have planets, particularly, not everybody will have the MC in the 10th house. Some will have it in the 9th or the 11th, and sometimes even the 8th or 7th or 12th even, depending on the latitude that you're born at. But for those who do have the MC in the 10th, this could be probably more likely career orientated, perhaps, particularly if it is close to that 21 degrees. Say give, I don't know, 2 or 3 degrees either side, perhaps. new beginnings, new starts. It might be a little bit shocking. It mightn't be what you were planning. Just surprise, we're doing this now. So, yeah.
And if you are a Sagittarius rising, this new moon eclipse is going to be happening in your 11th house. The 11th house is the house of friendships. It's the house of groups and associations. It's also the house of your hopes and dreams. So this could be something new that's coming in around your hopes and dreams, which would be very nice.
That would be nice. And if you are a Scorpio ascendant, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of our undoing. It is associated with places of confinement like prisons, hospitals. It's places of retreat such as monasteries. It's working behind the scenes in seclusion. It's being far from home, so in exile. It is also, as I said, our undoing. That can include addictions, bad habits. What is the one you always use? Escapism.
Escapism, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so there could be new beginnings or surprising things maybe being uncovered at this time. It's not a full moon. So, you know, at the time of the solar eclipse, it's not like there's a huge amount of light, but I mean, with the eclipse, you know, the sun gets covered up and then it's revealed again. So things can come to light here. So if you are doing something behind the scenes that's maybe a little bit dodgy, maybe just be aware that, you know, this has the potential to kind of trip you up. Maybe this is a time, if you have been battling with an addiction, maybe this is a time where it comes out. So, yeah. But
It gets revealed.
But, you know, this could be just working behind the scenes, maybe new beginnings. Maybe you've decided, okay, I mean, we've got Mercury there too. And Mercury's coming up. It is under the beams of the sun. So Mercury thinking's hidden, or it's kind of overpowered by the rays of the sun, you know. So good for secret thinking, working behind the scenes. It's in the 12th. Yeah. Scheming.
Yeah, I'm thinking with the South Node there that there's going to be a release of something, you know, because that's what the South Node does, is it gets rid of the things that you are moving away from. So yeah.
Well, that
if you are dealing with an addiction, this is good.
I was thinking more about planning behind the scenes and that with that Mercury doing a lot of, you know, even without it being in the 12th, just the Mercury being under the beams of the sun, it's kind of like hidden. And for Scorpio ascendants in the 12th, and it's going to come up to that Cazimi, which we'll address when we get to the aspects. But yes, I'm looking for a positive in this. Yeah.
Oh,
you know, maybe you'll
well,
have
you can't bring new stuff in unless you've gotten rid of the old stuff. So there's always that.
Yeah, true.
And with this solar eclipse, you know, it's going to be an annular, so you're going to see the ring of fire if you are in that path. So that is very cool. You know, because you don't get to see a ring of fire just every day. It's relatively rare, I would think.
Yeah.
Anyway, the stone that I have is very Libra-ish. I associate hospitality with Libra. I associate socialization with Libra. And this is called Pineapple Tourmaline. And this is a stone that has a Mohs hardness of 7 to 7.5. It is, I use it with the third chakra. I use it for mostly grids. If you're doing anything in the home, if you're hosting a Christmas party, I know we're getting up to that holiday season. Anything that you are doing in the home that you want to like be welcoming people in, this is a great stone to use. It has the piezoelectricity as well as the pyroelectricity, so it does conduct that. The striations run up along the length of this. That's how you can tell that it's tourmaline. It is found in the United States, Madagascar, Russia, Brazil, Africa, and Sri Lanka. So yeah, this is pineapple tourmaline.
Interesting.
And I will be writing an article about it. It's a very interesting stone, and I use it quite often. More often than I thought I would.
Very nice. There was something when you were talking about, just eclipses in general. I think some people believe, and I can see how it would totally make sense, if you can actually see the eclipse, like we won't see it in Australia. But for those in America, possibly South America, actually, you should probably look that up. If you can see this annular eclipse, it's possibly more likely to impact you, but you still need probably that 21 degrees of a cardinal sign, probably, to really fully feel the effects.
It's very interesting.
You got anything at 21?
Yes, as you were saying, that when a country can actually visualize the eclipse, it impacts the country that it is showing up in. So this is very much something for the United States people to be watching, as well as Mexico. It's going to hit the northern eastern tip of South America as well.
Interesting.
So all those countries could be impacted.
Well, we do have a chart of the Sibley chart. We had a bit of a look. It wasn't super whatever, I didn't think, but let's have a look.
Okay, so this is the Sibley chart.
The Sibley chart on the inside.
Against the eclipse chart. So the Sibley has a 12-degree ascendant.
Sagittarius, yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I'm just looking. The Sibley chart has Mars at 21 degrees of Gemini in the 7th house, and that's making a trine to this new moon solar eclipse.
Well, that is very interesting. And the United States has Mars natally in their 7th house, so trying the groups and associations.
Though that you were saying that this new moon, the moon mansion, was very much the nature of Mars and Saturn, and the US Mars is trine by degree this solar eclipse. Saturn, the natal Saturn, is in Libra, which is not super close to this solar eclipse, but it's in the same sign. And then when we looked at the Saros series, what they were talking about was Mars and Pluto, and of course the US is having its Pluto return.
It is very interesting, all these planets lining up.
Trying to think what the 7th house in mundane astrology represented. I think that's
the 7th house in mundane astrology.
Yeah.
Would be your enemies. It is the other. It would be enemies. It would be the people you deal with.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what neighbors and that were. Actually, just hold on a minute. Foreign affairs and international disputes, alliances with other nations and treaties, wars and truces, public relations, the marriage and divorce rates, foreign trade and investment.
I didn't think foreign trade and investments are in there, but that is interesting to find out.
Yeah. So this is a trine. So maybe a new ally for the US. Hopefully not a new enemy.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I like the idea of a new ally, perhaps. That we look at well, actually, we've got that set for Detroit, but that shouldn't matter anyway. It will be in the 11th house, which does tend to be about those that support us. It's also the government, allies of the nations, hopes and dreams of the nation. So yeah, maybe cementing some alliances, perhaps.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, let's have a look at the upcoming aspects.
There's not a whole lot. There seems to be a lot of movement.
Yeah, but I mean, we have the eclipse on the 14th, and the next aspect, like planetary aspect, we don't look at the lunar ones, otherwise we'd be here all night. But the next aspect is on the 20th, 6 days later. So kind of got a long time to absorb what happens during that eclipse. And then we have the Mercury Cazimi, which is Mercury's been under the beams, and it's finally come up to meet with the sun. So it's in the throne room of the sun. It's like being in the throne room of the king. It's got the king's ear. So this could be a really good time for great aha moments.
Great what?
Aha moments, like, eureka, I got it. Yeah.
Yes. Harmonious. Yes. Yeah, and because Mercury is moving direct, so it is getting the information, and it is ready to move on whatever it has decided that it wants to do.
Yeah.
So this is a very strong, a stronger Cazimi, as opposed to when Mercury is retrograde and going backwards. This is Mercury on the move and ready for action. So
yeah,
very interesting times coming.
Yeah, Mercury is moving pretty close, because Mercury and Venus, they're faster when they're coming up to the sun. They're under the beams of the sun at the time. The sun kind of, you can't see them in the sky because, they're too close to the sun. But it's like they're sneaking up on the sun. They're sneaking into the throne room. But yeah. So yeah, you may have some really great ideas. Just after this, Mercury is going to go out and still be under the beams of the sun again. This is like a respite. It's kind of like a rest and a breather. And, when Mercury's under the beams, we can feel like people kind of aren't really paying attention or listening. So, you may have to, just bide your time a little bit until you can actually do something with any great ideas that are percolated at this time.
Yeah, and Mercury is, once it gets away from the sun, more than 15 degrees or 10 degrees, it's going to go really, really fast. It's going 170% of its normal speed. So it is moving super fast.
Yeah.
And then we'll be able to actually, then Mercury we'll be able to see the true expression of Mercury once it gets away from the sun far enough.
Yeah, though it's going to move into Scorpio, which is a pretty secretive sign for Mercury to be into. So lots of strategic thinking coming up, I think. And then later that day, also on the 20th, we have Mercury squaring Pluto, which, talk about strategic thinking, a lot of deep analytical, a lot of thinking, quite possibly to do with relationships or other Venusian topics, because Mercury's in a Venus sign of Libra. So, very in-depth, could be quite deep and meaningful conversations, good for investigative type work, which again, when this gets to Scorpio, also suits that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's with Mercury and Pluto, you could expect that you could have people possibly taking advantage of a conversation or words that were spoken. This is a square means challenge, and Pluto is not known for being subtle.
No.
So this definitely could be intense conversations.
Very intense. Could be also paranoia, and could be quite manipulative conversations or thinking.
Can easily get talked into something that you don't want to do. So Make sure your boundaries are firm
Yeah.
on the 20th of October.
And Mercury being in Libra, it kind of doesn't like to rock the boat. It wants everything to be nice and harmonious and everyone just to get along.
Oh, and not to be outdone, the sun will square Pluto.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is also a challenging aspect. This could be a hit to your health. This could also be if you now, and this would have to be, you know, also in line with the rest of you have a natal chart if this is if this is something that you have, but if these planets are around any of your natal planets, this would be something definitely to be concerned about. I wouldn't discount an ache. Go get it checked out.
Yeah, that Sun and Mercury are still close together. Still technically Cazimi by Hellenistic method because we allow a 1 degree orb. That moon's coming up to that Pluto as well. But yeah, when is this? This is 21st of October. The previous one, the Mercury square, was the day before. So we're talking about 12 hours later. This one is exact. Maybe there was that manipulation or, that paranoia may have set in, and maybe, this has kind of rocked you a little bit. It's not feeling comfortable, not feeling your own autonomy, I suppose, or just feeling like you're kind of a little bit at the whim of others, perhaps. Yeah, it's just these two go very well together. It's just that Mercury square Pluto, then the Sun square Pluto, or maybe there was a very intense conversation that's made you feel a little unsettled with yourself. Maybe somebody's pointed out something that you weren't aware of, about yourself, and that can be quite confronting, and then you've got that moon coming up too, which, is going to bring in the emotional bit.
And then a little bit of a respite. These two planets are our benefic planets, Venus and Jupiter, forming a trine. Jupiter is still in retrograde, so it's not going to be acting as well as it would like to. It might have a little bit of limping along, but still, the planets are our benefic planets. The aspect is a trine, which is a nice aspect. Typically, things with trines are good, but this is and in fact, usually I look for this Venus trine Jupiter for layouts and stuff. This is a good time to do anything positive that would be good for your health. This is a good time to start that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that Jupiter is retrograde, but it is a benefics. It's a trine, so yeah, this is, after all that heaviness with Pluto being aspected by the Sun and Mercury, this is maybe catching up with friends or supportive people. It's a bit of light, a bit of just help, just like Donna said, respite, or just
a bright spot.
yeah. And thank God, I think it'll be needed. I think it'll be well appreciated. So Sunday in the United States. So Monday. Oh no, it's very early over there. So late Saturday night for a lot of the US, and Sunday afternoon for us. So
yeah, something to look forward to for sure. And then Mercury enters Scorpio, and this is Mercury. No planet likes to be in Scorpio. But Mercury, I find Mercury and Scorpio likes those hidden languages. Scorpio is all about hidden things, and I have a Mercury in Scorpio. So, but I like what's underneath that's kind of building it up. What's driving the force? So what is what makes it tick? And I've always been interested in that. So astrology works well. Yeah. I even studied Latin for, 4 years in high school. So it's those hidden languages. It's what's underneath and or what's built up. So this would be a great time for any time as a planet moves into a new sign is a reason to journal, I think. There is a shift in that energy, as Lynda had said earlier, and maybe not this episode, but she has, said there is a shift to every time there's a, when the planets moved into a new sign, and this is a new sign, so this will be a new way of communicating. You might want to communicate more behind the scenes or underneath the scenes this way. This might be a time when you're not buying a billboard to say anything. You're, kind of, you're in that smoky, dark lounge, rubbing shoulders with whoever, you need to get your information to. It might be a different way of getting the conversation done or had. Yeah.
Well, Mars is comfortable in Scorpio. It's ruled by Mars, so you've got that, and Mars is currently in Scorpio. Mercury in Scorpio, very good, investigative, delving below the surface. This Mercury, as Donna was saying, it's just had that Cazimi with the sun. When was that? I think 2 days prior. So this is a good time for going away and, working behind the scenes, scheming, which might sound awful, but I kind of like, even the sound of the word scheming sounds fun. We've got Mars there also, and Mars, amongst other things, can be aggression and anger. When we see Mercury and Mars together, can be, harsh words or fighting words. But look, I think this could be used really constructively to actually work behind the scenes and put that energy into the planning and the scheming and all the rest of it. Mars in Scorpio, it's a fixed energy. It's got that staying power, that enduring, just slog away at it. So, great time to work on those ideas that may have cropped up a couple of days prior. But, there's potential too that people might be a little bit edgy as well. And wherever Scorpio is in your natal chart, you've got thinking, communications, planning, and you've also got energy and action and possibly a little bit of aggression and anger, going on in that part of your chart. So something to be aware of.
And then the next aspect is Mercury is going to trine Saturn, who is also retrograde. So, these planets they don't act in the most ideal situations, and Mercury is, trining Saturn. The only thing I can think of is serious thoughts, serious conversations, seriousness, just so much seriousness.
Mercury trine Saturn, that's going to be on the very late on the 22nd for those on the east coast of the US. Serious, can be conservative thinking as well. I think this can be really helpful. We were talking earlier, it's not in this podcast, even though it was kind of tied in with the eclipse, that Mars Saturn. And Mars Saturn seems to be something big. It was mentioned in the moon mansion we spoke about. It was kind of showing up in the eclipse chart. So that Saturn gives that Mars that stability, but Mars has moved on from that aspect. It's at 7 degrees by this stage. Now Mercury, which had that kind of great ideas perhaps under the Cazimi, it's changed sign, it's under the beams, it's kind of working behind the scenes and, kind of formulating its plans. And here's Saturn to give a little bit of stability. That stability might not be as grounded as it usually is because Saturn is retrograde, but hopefully, use the power of both Saturn to ground it and kind of build something stable and lasting, and Mars for the actual hard work, the actual physical exertion or whatever you need to do for that. I think it could be applied right. It could be really powerful. It all comes back to if you can harness that Mars in a positive way.
I like that. use the planets. That's what they're there for. Oh, Mars is squaring the moon.
Maybe, see, now I told you got to watch out for that Mars. It's going to be cranky. But,
Watch out for those
just
emotions. Those emotions might,
yeah. Yeah. Well, and they're in Aquarius too, which isn't an overly emotional sign. But oh well.
Right. Well, that's a blessing.
Yeah, but we got fixed signs, so
Yeah.
Oh well.
Anyway,
moving on. And the moon moves fast, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's maybe 4 hours. It will be an exact aspect. So just take a breath and it'll pass. And then the sun enters Scorpio. So happy birthday, Scorpios. Yeah, this is even the sun doesn't really like to be in Scorpio, but it is what it is. There has to be, Scorpio is there for a reason. And as I always say, anytime a planet, and that includes a luminary, moves into a new sign, journal, it could show you a shift that's going to be happening. So this is kind of nice. It is well trining Saturn, but the sun moving into Scorpio is I like it. I happen to be a Scorpion. So.
Yeah, well, happy Scorpio season to all the Scorpios. Yeah, I quite like Scorpio season. Sun entering into Scorpio. We've also got Mercury there, and we've got Mars there at the moment. So 3 signs in Scorpio. There's a big focus on that part of your chart, wherever Scorpio is in your natal chart. The people and topics associated with that house likely to have a lot of activity going on there at this time.
And this will be on that Monday on the 23rd. So the sun is trining Saturn, and that's very telling of serious work and serious issues, serious topics. It's not a time for frivolity or just nonchalant things. It's very, and as far as Scorpio is Scorpio wants that intensity, that with the sun being in there, it's kind of asking for that intensity. And this is pretty good for if you want to get serious work done, serious thought done.
Yeah, it's grounding. It might not be super exciting. We've got that Mercury under the beams. So you're still in the planning and scheming stages of things here. Got Mars also in Scorpio. So, bit of hard work. But yeah, you got that grounding. You're kind of working towards building something. So, and that's on the 24th of October.
This one is definitely, this next aspect is an aspect you need to watch out for. Mars is opposite retro Jupiter. Retrograde Jupiter is having a hard time shining in the light that it likes to. And Jupiter is that planet that brings, I want to say judicial or excitement, generosity. Maybe generosity is a good word. But the Mars opposite Jupiter, Jupiter wants to look at the more worldly views, where Mars is the ruler of Aries. So it kind of wants to take the lead and charge up that mountain by itself. An opposition is a challenging aspect. This is an aspect where you could bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
It's an aspect where you can say, I want a garden. And I've done this before. You can say, I want to do a garden, and then have like 50 tomato plants and, 20 squashes, and you're not going to use that unless you're a really good canner and can devote your days to that for the fall. It's just, you could really go overboard with this kind of an aspect.
Yeah. We've been talking about Mercury being under the beams. One of the first aspects after the new moon solar eclipse was Mercury Cazimi, Mercury in the heart of the sun, which can often kind of bring brilliant ideas, great ideas, and then Mercury's came out from there and was overshadowed by the sun again. So good for working behind the scenes. We're talking about planets in Scorpio, the sun, Mercury, and Mars, which tends to be kind of a little bit secretive anyway. And yeah, we've been talking about, or I've been talking about how it would be really helpful if you can use that Mars in Scorpio to actually do any physical work required for whatever that great idea was, rather than kind of biting everybody's head off and starting arguments and getting into ego battles. But at this stage, we've got Mercury at 10 degrees, we've got Mars at 11 degrees of Scorpio. So they're coming up to conjunction, and that does tend to be fighting words, edgy, cranky, just, yeah. This is kind of probably going to be a little bit of a cranky argument. And then you've got both of those opposite Jupiter, which, as Donna said, can have things to do with justice. It's also religion. It's big ideas and all that. When I first saw this, I was thinking, okay, you've been working behind the scenes, doing all this. It can be also that Jupiter can go to excess. You know, maybe you're pushing too far. You're wanting to do too much too quickly and overexerting yourself. But there's also the possibility that this can be a war of words. And those words might have something to do with people's worldviews, their big picture thinking, or, you know, religion, or just Jupiter can sometimes be a little bit maybe condescending at times. There can be kind of a holier than thou or I know better attitude sometimes with Jupiter. And, you know, this could be like a real, yeah, because that Jupiter, we said it can expand. We got Mars, which is the god of war. This could kind of, you know, there's this disagreement and then suddenly it's a big shouting match, you know. So this could be, what is it, Saturday the 28th. Could be a good time to just lock yourself away. Don't email anyone, don't talk to anyone. But yeah, no, you can't do that for a day. But yeah, just this might be a little bit contentious for some people. But, you know, for some people, it could be just overdoing that physical or whatever work you've been doing. And it could be, even if it's not physical work, you know, because mentally thinking about things, you know, like you don't have to have a job where you're actually physically laboring to be exhausted after a day's work. If you're working in an office or thinking and strategizing, that can be just as, you know, it's mentally draining, you know. So this could be overdoing, kind of mental exertion, kind of, you know, just, it's not good.
As you were saying that, it just occurred to me, this would be a great day to, and not really great, I'm saying that with tongue in cheek. This would be a really great day to like pull a muscle.
Oh,
You know, if you're not thinking,
Yep.
Mars is that, you know, impatience, and Jupiter rules those big muscles, and an opposition is a challenging aspect. So be careful of physical energy. This could be, this, you could end up hurting yourself. So just don't take the risk today, not today.
Maybe even arms and hands and that too, with that Mercury conjunct Mars and that opposition from Jupiter.
It's possible. Yeah. And again, this is always, you know, per your chart, if it's ticking your chart, if it's tapping any of your other planets in your own natal chart, this is, you know, would be an event. This would be, what is that word? What this would be, how it would manifest is,
well,
so just be careful if it's in your chart.
Jupiter's going to be on my Venus, so I'll let you know.
Well, okay.
I'm just going to lock myself away.
And Jupiter's on my ascendant. Well, kind of close, but
yeah,
yeah.
it is close, isn't it? Damn.
So I'll take it easy that day.
And then we have the lunar eclipse on the 28th. So this is just a sneak peek at it. Oh, look at that. So the lunar eclipse will be at 5 degrees of Taurus. We'll have Jupiter close to it. That Jupiter-Mars opposition's going on at the same time. Mercury's trying to get in on the act. And where is Venus? Venus is in Virgo.
In Virgo. She can see it and she can help that moon.
Yes.
So there's a breather, because Jupiter and Mars are going to be opposing each other at that time.
Yeah.
So
Yes. It'd be very interesting. Interesting.
Plan your days accordingly.
Well, lunar eclipses can eclipse people or things out of our lives, as they do say. So yeah, maybe be aware of that when if you're feeling like engaging in some fighting words, you might say something that you regret. And
Good day to mind your P's and Q's.
yes. Well, Donna, where can people find you and what services are you offering?
You can find me at Donna B Astrology. That's my website, and I have my contact information on that website. And I do natal readings as well as year ahead readings, electional, horary, and I also do medical, and I do energy healing as well. So that's for it can go for anything. Energy healing works energetically. If you're doing a group of people, you can do that. Or in individual layouts, which is good for if you've experienced any kind of trauma, whether that's physical or emotional. If you have, if you don't feel abundant, if you feel like the world is against you, this is another good reason to do a layout. It gets those chakras all in line and gets you feeling better. And Lynda, what do you do? And where can people get a hold of you?
I'm at Scullywag Astrology. That's astrology.scullywag.com. And I'm offering natal readings, year ahead readings, and relationship readings. Mm-hmm. So, yes, thank you for listening. And we hope that the new moon solar eclipse is very kind to you. We appreciate your comments and likes and shares. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, we'd really appreciate you rating us. That would be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.